Representative Miller, welcome to your committee. I am going to move that House File 3106 be referred to the Committee on Capital Investment without recommendation. With that, if you can
Madam Chair,
give us a brief description of your bill, and then we'll take questions at that point after you have the bill.
Madam Chair, mine is to the motion for referral. Can I amend the motion to have it be referred to public safety, and could I have a roll call on that?
You can, and we'll do that as we close up the bill. You can make your own motion, but right now we're just going to take through the bill. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yep.
Representative Miller.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, members of this committee. My bill is to purchase or to secure general obligation bonds to purchase the Prairie Correctional Facility in Appleton and pay for facility upgrades for a maximum of $139 million, pending facility appraisal and purchase agreement. This is based off of a study that was done in this last year, and those were the recommendations as to cost, but there's not an assumption of how much the purchase of the building is until we have an appraisal. So that may go down from there. There's also another option to lease to own that we've presented in the past and will certainly be presented forward, which would also kind of adjust exactly what we're trying to do forward here. But the real intent is to facilitate the purchase of it, or the ownership by the state of Minnesota. There's been a great deal of discussion around a myriad of issues regarding the Minnesota Department of Corrections using these facilities, including sentencing reform, social justice, private prisons in Minnesota, and union versus non-union. In the end, this project is very clear and simple. The state of Minnesota, according to the Department of Corrections, has a prison population problem that is going to grow. Prairie Correctional Facilities can address that problem now and in the future when they need those services. I want to refer to some supporting documents that I've handed out for the sake of brevity, Madam Chair. I'm not going to go through those. They're for your reading, but please take note. The top one says Appleton option on it, and it gives that determination that I said that fundamentally Minnesota has a prison population problem, and we have an asset which can resolve that. There's a timeline in that. A lot of the discussion surrounding this has had sort of a fact versus fiction thing. May come up in some questions today that I'm more than happy to resolve those where I can. But we do believe that this is a straightforward option. And one thing that I made clear to the Department of Corrections last year is we're not asking them to open or to purchase and to open a prison. What we're saying is when at such time that they need to expand their facilities, that they do so with the Appleton option. If they do not have that need at any time in the future, then we understand that. So with that, I'm going to, I have my first testifier here. I'm going to let him go ahead and proceed forward.
Welcome to the committee. If you can please state your name for the record and who you represent.
Madam Chair, my name is Gary Hendricks, Swift County Commissioner, resident of Appleton. Appleton is within my district. We support House File 3106. We feel we have the regional support. We have documentation that indicates that we have 25 counties and communities that are in support of reopening the prison. We believe overall that the state has an overcrowding issue. We see that within the Department of Corrections' own information, and that we believe that the jails, the county jails, are not the facilities in which they should be housed. We feel a prison overall will add the programming, rehab services that is essential for these individuals once they go out and are completed with their sentencing and can become more active and supportive citizens of Minnesota. We have as Representative Miller has stated, a pre-existing building. It's already there. It's been in operational before, and it's ready to go with we don't know how much, but changes will have to be facilitated, but it's basically in very good shape. And overall, for the future of our communities, the stability of Western Minnesota, we are looking for the jobs that would be created and the good paying jobs that are offered through the prison system and the Department of Corrections. So we are advocating for the state to purchase the facility and we could have a long relationship for years to come. Thank you.
And Representative Miller, do you have other testifiers that wish to testify?
Madam Chair, I do not have other testifiers, but I believe that there are other testifiers listed.
I see that. I just have a question for Commissioner Hendricks. You talk about the jobs. What is the estimate of the number of jobs?
Madam Chair, I can answer that.
Representative Miller.
The answer is fluid in the sense that it depends on how many inmates may be populated. It's up to 1,600 beds. The general assumption is with the amount of population that would go in there, it would be about 300 up to, I know the Department of Corrections has listed that it would be 500 full-time positions that would be out there. That's with a capacity prison of 1,600 inmates in it. So 300 to 500 is the answer.
And Representative Miller, what's the population of Appleton?
The population of Appleton right now is about 1,400 is what I was going to say, yes.
Great.
And if I could add on to that, that's why we have a number of communities and counties. When it was open, there was well over 300 people working there, and it drew from a large geographic area. Traveling in our area, the traffic is very light. So does not, if you're talking about 10 miles, it takes you 10 minutes to get there.
And Madam Chair, if I could just.
Representative Miller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to support that. And this is in your kind of fact versus fiction. Sometimes the labor market there has been put into question by the Department of Corrections. The Department of Employment and Economic Development actually did a study, I believe it was in 2016, that determined there was sufficient labor market out there to sustain
Okay, great.
opening this.
Thank you. And thank you, Commissioner. And just don't go anywhere. Well, I know it's a long drive back home, so you're not going to go too soon, but appreciate your testimony. I have first on my list, Janae Bates. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and who you represent. And I'm just going to tell this to everybody. We do end committee at 2:45, so if you can be considerate of the people behind you, okay? And if you have written testimony, you don't need to read it. You can provide to that committee, and we'll disseminate that to everybody. If you could just kind of speak from your heart, that would be helpful.
Sure.
Ms. Bates.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Hello, my name is Minister Janae Bates, and I am here representing Isaiah as well as my faith values, and I will be brief. Today, we are having an economic and financial conversation about adding human cages to our community. As a minister from the Christian faith tradition, I believe I had a bit of wisdom to add to this conversation. In the book of Luke, chapter 4, Jesus announces his ministry and what I would also consider to be his political and economic plan. He says, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me because God has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim liberty to the captives and recovering sight to the blind, to set liberty to those who are oppressed, and to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." The prison industrial complex is a term we use to describe the overlapping interests of government and industry that use surveillance, policing, and imprisonment as solutions to our economic, social, and political problems. The prison industrial complex and mass incarceration are great descriptor words in making it clear that this is a system and it's institutional. However, it does not make it clear that every person in this room, in this city, and in this state has a role and responsibility to it. Citizens and politicians bear the moral burden of creating this system and the damaging and surveilling detention of Americans, especially those in communities of color. Bad policies and decisions are made in boardrooms, courtrooms, and rooms just like this every single day, and they have created these oppressive and racially oppressive systems, which also means that we have a role and a responsibility to fix it. There is a possible way to fix it. And so if we, as members of this board, decide to purchase human cages, you are putting a face on the elusive prison industrial complex. It will not only have a face, but a place to dwell and wreak havoc in our great state of Minnesota. Do you want to carry that weight, that burden, that responsibility, or that shame? I don't think you do. But we do know that our financial decisions also have human consequences. So how far are we willing to go for a few dollars, a couple of fluid jobs? How far are we willing to go to separate parents from their children, spouses from their partners, entire communities without their people. And so we need you to stand by us, the people, in challenging the belief that caging and controlling people is what makes us safe. Together we can envision and create a social and economic order that does not only rely on sequestering people in deadfall places designed to separate them from their communities and families. All of our efforts and resources, financial and otherwise, should be used to educate, assist, and empower our communities within the context of eliminating human cages as our mainstream livelihood. And so today, let us be like Jesus, proclaiming the good news to the poor, proclaiming liberty to the captives, and setting liberty to those who are oppressed. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Janae. No. So for folks that are in the audience, I would ask that you refrain from clapping because that is not how we operate committees. So please be respectful of the institution. If there are issues with that, I can have somebody that will have a conversation with you about that. Okay? So we have Mr. Hall and then Mr. Alvarez after that. And folks, we have 30 minutes left. If each of the people that are left on the list take 5 minutes, we will be at 40 minutes. So whoever's at the end of the line, their time will be minimized because of the people before them. So for those that get to be first, please be respectful of the people behind you. Be brief, okay? Mr. Hall, please.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Max Hall. I'm a legislative representative with AFSCME Council 5. We represent approximately 43,000 state, county, and city employees who work and live throughout the state, and including roughly 2,000 correctional officers. As you're aware, House File 3106 is a proposal that would allow the state of Minnesota to purchase and make upgrades to the Appleton former private prison facility, the mothballed prison in Appleton, Minnesota. It appropriates up to $74.1 million to actually purchase the facility and would allow for the remaining amount to be used for capital improvement projects on the location. So a couple of things that the funds, the bonding proceeds would be used for is to be in compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, the Prison Rape Elimination Act, and of course the American Corrections Association's standards for prison facilities. So our members have taken a firm position that leasing the facility or engaging in any way with CoreCivic in those regards is something that we do not support. We're happy that this bill does not engage in a lease. However, we would hope that other options that the Department of Corrections, that Governor Dayton and others have provided to actually deal with the inmate population, the prison population issue. So our correctional officers believe and have strongly supported the issue that Representative Miller has brought forward in terms of sentencing reform and other issues. Sorry. So we repeatedly come to the legislature, us and our members, asking for funding for our current facilities located across the state in terms of increased staffing to ensure inmate and staff safety, excuse me. Additional bonding projects to rehabilitate and expand upon our existing facilities, and projects that expand bed space at our current facilities, which comes at a much smaller cost than the proposal that's in front of you today. So I will turn over the microphone, out of respect for you, Madam Chair, and the time, to Sergeant Rick Nyson.
Welcome to the committee. If you can please be brief.
Yes, I will. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Sergeant Rick Nyson. I'm a proud AFSCME member. I've been a employee of the Department of Corrections for 25 years. I work in a cell hall in the St. Cloud prison that houses 174 offenders. I'd again like to thank you for allowing me to talk on House File 3106. It is a bill that AFSCME has many concerns about. As a correctional officer, I have firsthand knowledge of our current facilities and how short-staffed and the strain that the Department of Corrections has concerning their budget. Purchasing a prison that is located 3 miles west or 3 hours west of the Twin Cities would have many negative results for the staff and the inmate population and their families alike. I want to highlight quick 3 concerns. One, being so far away, it would dramatically increase the time in which our special operations response groups and our special operations response teams would take to get there to potential riot and violent outbursts in the prison. The other part is the availability of mutual aid in that area. I was part of a uprising in St. Cloud back in the mid-90s where we lost control of one of our recreation areas. 64 offenders took it over. And before I got there, and I lived 10 minutes away, the St. Cloud Police Department had many squads there, and they were giving us support on our perimeter. I question the availability in that area of that type of mutual aid support, especially when you're looking at upwards of 1,600 people. The other thing is staffing. Right now, we being the Department of Corrections and AFSCME, with the requests for CO funding. Have not always got that support, and I'm just curious exactly where the money for 500 plus more people are going to come from. We do have some, we need to look at this at its totality. It's not a purchase and the problem is solved. We have to look at the $50 million price tag, the biennium for operating costs that will continue to be a cost. And at this point, we can look at sentencing reform measures, and I would urge you to support Governor Dayton's and the Department of Corrections bonding proposal that would increase our bed space of over 100 beds, but with a fraction of the price of this proposal. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. All right, I have Miss Alvarez, and the next testifier is Lopez, Levon, English, Shosh. So if you can kind of get queued up so that we can. Yes, please. Yep, no, that's fine. That is wonderful. Thank you. And welcome to the committee. And if you can please state your name for the record and who you represent.
Yes, my name is Antonia Alvarez. I'm co-founder Asamblea de Derechos Civiles. I'm coming from the Church Encarnación in Minneapolis, Incarnation in Minneapolis. And I'm organizer with the Latino community for 18 years in Minnesota. Hoy estoy aquí.
Today I am here
Porque quiero decirles que la sociedad necesita
because I want to let you know that society needs
más educadores que criminales.
more educators than criminals.
Se me hace inaudito.
I think it's unacceptable.
Ayer estamos luchando por más fondos para dar educación a nuestros niños
Yesterday we were fighting to get more funds for our children,
y hoy estoy aquí denunciando que quieren invertir millones de dólares para una prisión.
and today I am here denouncing that you want to invest millions in a prison.
Vengo de México
I come from Mexico,
y en México se piensa que los Estados Unidos y sus políticos son muy humanitarios.
and in Mexico we believe that U.S. politicians and the country itself is humanitarian.
En estos momentos, la sociedad en general en los Estados Unidos
In these moments, the general society in the United States,
principalmente los inmigrantes indocumentados,
primarily undocumented immigrants,
sentimos que la fabricación de prisiones
feel that the opening of prisons
son centros de concentración como los tenía Hitler en Alemania.
are concentration camps like the ones that Hitler had in Germany.
Las corporaciones nos miran como una fábrica de dinero.
Corporations look at us like money factories.
Nosotros somos seres humanos.
We are humans.
Nosotros queremos ser reconocidos en la sociedad.
We want to be recognized in society.
Nosotros somos trabajadores de este estado.
We are workers of this state.
Nosotros limpiamos sus oficinas.
We clean your offices.
limpiamos sus casas,
We clean your homes.
limpiamos sus yardas,
We clean your yards.
reparamos sus techos
We fix your roofs.
y muchas veces
And many times,
nos meten a las prisiones injustamente.
you unjustly put us in prisons.
No es posible que esté pasando esto.
It is not possible that this is happening.
Todos los que estamos aquí
Everyone who is here,
y ustedes,
and including yourselves,
estamos aquí por un propósito.
are here for a purpose.
Y el propósito de todos es reconocer la dignidad de los seres humanos.
And the purpose of everybody here is to recognize everybody's humanity.
Si permitimos que fabriquen prisiones,
If we allow them to continue opening prisons,
van a venir por mí.
they're going to come after me.
Y estoy clara de eso.
And I'm very clear on that.
Pero cuando se acaben los míos,
But when my people are done with,
van a venir por los hijos de
they're
ustedes.
going to come after your children too.
Porque las corporaciones son ambiciosas
Because corporations are greedy and ambitious.
y no están mirando la dignidad de las personas.
And they are not recognizing people's dignity.
Quiero pedirles, por favor,
I want to ask you, please,
antes de que ustedes decidan
before you make a decision
en favor de una prisión,
in favor of a prison,
piensen un momento en sus familias
think for a moment about your families.
y en un acto de amor,
And in an act of love,
voten
vote
por lo que ustedes desean
for what you wish
para sus familias y la sociedad,
for your families and for society,
porque el Señor va a estar con ustedes.
because the Lord will be with you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have Lopez, Levon, English, and what I'm going to do in order to make sure that we have enough time for questions, you have 2 minutes. After the 2 minutes, I will ask you to submit your further comments in writing, and we will disseminate that to the rest of the committee.
Absolutely.
So welcome to the committee. If you can please state your name for the record and who you represent. And it's 2 minutes, and you'll get a warning of 1 minute from one of these guys. Make a poster of 1 minute, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, my name is Luz Lopez. I am an organizer with Asamblea de Derechos Civiles. And I am here today because I'm here to echo the concerns of our co-founder as well. I'm very concerned that there's going to be this prison that is going to be opening. I understand that this prison is not supposed to be used for private reasons under a Republican governor, but I've worked closely with the Stearns County Sheriff's Department, and I have found that in the surrounding areas of St. Cloud, folks are being funneled to ICE. They are being stopped, they're being racially profiled, detained for ICE, and then deported. So the fact that the argument is that it won't be used for that reason, I frankly do not believe. Again, we're going to be spending $139 million on this, and I think that it could be used elsewhere. We could put it into after-school programs. I know that they've been cutting after-school programs. They have been reducing hours in schools.
Ms.
And-
Lopez? I'm going to ask that you submit the remainder of your comments to the committee. I apologize. It's just the reality of the people that we have on the list, and we have, I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to speak.
Absolutely.
Are you good with that?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you all
Okay.
for your time.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I'm probably saying this name wrong, and I apologize, Ms. Levad, or Levad. And 2 minutes?
My name is Amy Levon. I'm a professor at the University of St. Thomas, specializing in the ethics of criminal justice. I've written and researched about these issues for nearly 20 years and been participating in conversations around this particular move to reopen Prairie Correctional Facility for the last 2 years. And I want to start with a quotation. At first we thought if we built it, then they would come, but what we've learned is that some of the prison employees come to work here, but not to live here. This quotation is from a county commissioner in a town that opened a prison with hopes of stimulating its economy with new jobs, more workers, and local multipliers, as people hired by the prison shopped at local butchers, restaurants, and hardware stores. His comments lament that this plan didn't work out. The prison did not generate the economic stimulus that he thought would save his town and neighbors. He goes on to say that the prison has yet to, quote, I find the wording ironic, capture the employees yet, leading to a high turnover rate. The irony is that this commissioner testified first today. It was a quotation from a 2002 article in Economic Development Digest titled, Does Crime Pay? Pros and Cons of Rural Prisons? And the speaker was Commissioner Gary Hendricks. It is tragic that the citizens of Appleton and Swift County have forgotten this hard-learned lesson. I fear that they will learn it again if the prison reopens, because it is a lesson learned by rural communities across the country that turned to prisons in the 1990s and 2000s as a means of economic development. Numerous evidence-based, peer-reviewed studies of the economic effects of opening prisons demonstrate that they harm rural communities, that there are not the multiplier effects that are expected, that employment doesn't pan out because most of the jobs are dictated by union rules related to seniority, and most of the people employed in newly opened prisons are out-of-county residents.
Ms. Levon, I apologize. The time is up, and I need to make sure that we have the other people have a chance to give their testimony. If you can provide the remainder.
I will have all of the peer-reviewed articles sent to each and every one of you.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Ms. Levon. Ms. English. Welcome to the committee. If you can please state your name for the record and who you represent.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Rachel English. I am a community organizer with Jewish Community Action. GCA is a faith-based community organization that seeks to make sure our strong moral values are reflected in the policies and procedures of our state. Acquiring a new prison is not within those values, and for that reason we are opposed to using state funds for this purchase. And I'm going to turn it over to Rabbi Shosh Dworsky to talk more about those values.
So my name is Rabbi Troshana Susan Dworsky. I live in 64B in St. Paul, and I work as a rabbi at Carleton College. And I have tremendous compassion and sympathy for the people of Appleton who have seen their economy decline, the farming and the manufacturing. And as a Minnesotan, I care about you. But this is not the way to go. And it was especially important for me to come here because we are 2 weeks from Passover. So in 2 weeks on Friday night, Jews locally throughout the country, worldwide, will be sitting down at their dinner tables to talk about the issue of freedom and to talk about the unjust deprivation of freedom of the Israelites in Egypt. That will be the story. And they will do a close reading of the beginning of the book of Exodus, where what happens is that the Pharaoh looks out on his country and he sees there are lots of Israelites. And that's the problem for him. It's a population problem. He's frightened of them. It says so explicitly. He's frightened of this huge population of foreigners, and he doesn't know what to do. And I think we'll probably all agree that he goes down the wrong path for lack of vision, for lack of creating thinking. All he can think to do is to control them. And as Reverend Bates said, controlling the population does not make us all safe. And in the end, it backfires. So this prison system that we are working on here, we need to work on it, but we need to think much bigger and much more creatively. In the Jewish liturgy, every morning we say the blessing, blessed are you, Adonai, our God, who frees the captive. The God of the Jewish people, the God of the Israelites, is the God who hears the cry of the prisoner, and we pray is with us when we try to free the captive. That's what we should be working on.
Thank you.
So just to conclude my portion, the state appears to be considering paying $139 million, of which $74 million would go to a corporation called Core Civic, which has refused to pay its actual fair share of taxes to fund our actual core civic responsibilities of the state, including mental health care, physical health care, and education, which our partners in rural communities have said multiple times are their top priorities. Instead, they've sued and challenged the local area, the local counties to bring their tax obligation down to $14 million. And so we should not be rewarding this behavior by spending our state resources to support a corporation where the projects and the profits will actually be redirected from the values of healthcare and education and all the things that will actually redirect folks from the prison. Thank you.
Thank you both. I've got Annika Bowie. And then Eliezer Daris after that. And if Eliezer wants to come down and sit in the spare chair.
Good afternoon.
Welcome to the committee.
My name is Annika Bowie, and I'm a representative from NAACP Minneapolis. I'm the co-chair of the Criminal Justice Reform Committee. And part of our 10-point liberation plan for people of color is to eliminate mass incarceration. So this capital investment actually goes against the betterment of low-income communities and communities of colors that we serve. Eliminating institutionalized racism is a key component of what we do. We actually have forgiven hundreds of warrants in Ramsey County as well as in Hennepin County. And I'm also the lead organizer of the Restore the Vote Coalition, and this appropriation of funds to prison will increase the population of disenfranchised voters, which will be counterproductive to you guys as representatives who need voters. Crime is actually down in Minnesota between 2008 to 2016, but more people are getting locked up. So Mr. Miller is correct that more people are getting locked up in Minnesota, but there's abundance of agencies that are actually looking to divert those who are nonviolent offenders, so we don't have an issue of prison population. Why exactly has Minnesota not tracked with the majority of the nation is an open question, where on a national level, prison population is actually decreasing. And I think we should follow that trend. And I have a quote from Jeff Agee, who's the vice president of NAACP Minneapolis. And his quote is, "It is counterproductive that we can build and improve prisons while denying the building of people who are affected by the inequitable criminal justice system." Thank you.
Thank you. Eliezer Daris, welcome to the committee. If you can please state your name for the record and who you represent.
My name is Eliezer Daris. It's E-L-I-Z-E-R. And I thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I have a few points for consideration that I would love to be able to leave with y'all. I am formerly incarcerated. I'm also currently with the ACLU. Some of the points that I want to initially just drop, I only have 2 minutes, but I want to say that I'm really disappointed to actually be sitting here and have this issue yet again come before us. I feel like some issues are just issues that should just be finished and moved on so that we can look at real and actual practical ways to get really deep and devastating issues resolved. To me, it just doesn't feel as though this issue that we've already gone over several times over is getting us to the point of getting this thing done. And so to me, this issue should pretty much be done, and I will hope that this just doesn't come before this committee again. Some of the issues that I have with regard to opening up Appleton is first and foremost, what is best for the community? We know that education impacts dramatically recidivism. We also know that while a person is in custody, his or her attachments to family also is secondary to education in terms of impacting recidivism and keeping our community safe. And so what we will be looking at is a 3-hour travel for family members going one way, visiting for 2 hours, 3 hours travel going back another way. So if that family member was to leave the house at 1 o'clock, they would get there at 4 o'clock, they would visit until 6 o'clock and get home at 9 o'clock. And I'm not sure how many family members will actually be able to do something like that. We also know that that some of the best ways of actually keeping us safe is to look at some really practical ways of having more individuals leave out of the overcrowded facilities into something like supervised release, which, you know, knowing where people are located, knowing more about what they are doing, to me seems more practical. And we have a huge prison population of individuals who are incarcerated for drug crimes.
I apologize, Mr.
I understand.
I really do hope that you can provide all of your testimony to us.
I will do that.
And we'll make sure it gets out to everybody.
I was trying to read off of my statement without reading the statement.
I have the same issue.
But I will submit it in writing, and hopefully this will be one of the last times that, you know, we are addressing this issue, and that we're looking for some actual practical ways, because I also sympathize with what's happening in Appleton, and I think that there are some really great ideas that should be able to come forward so that we can revitalize that economy as well. And so thank you all for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. And now I do need to ask, is there anybody else that wishes to testify on this bill? Okay, if you can please come forward. And I only see one person, so welcome to the committee. Yep.
Thank you.
And if you can.
I'll be real brief.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
My name is Benjamin Ramirez, Ben for short.
Thank you.
I'm going to say is massive arrests and deportations, the breakup of families and trauma to children, the misguided funding of prisons led by private companies and lobbyists, and the construction of walls between different races of people and their cultures is immoral, divisive, and destructive, and does not contribute to improving our world. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Pretty good. Representative Olson, you wanted to make a motion.
Yes, I'd like to amend the motion to send this to public safety, and I'd like a roll call on that. And just to explain that motion, I think the conversation we had here is really around public safety. We're a state government finance committee, and I don't think we even got some satisfactory time to discuss some of the numbers in here. And I think the discussion really needs to happen in public safety about the need for prisons, and really needs to be vetted through the appropriate committee.
Okay.
Chair.
Representative Miller.
Madam Chair, thank you, members. Representative Olson, I don't support this only because we have been through public safety last year, and we were through it the previous 2 years at some level or another. So I appreciate these conversations, and I think these are very important conversations to be had. But the bill before us now, as I said in the beginning, these are really good conversations to have. But this is about the Department of Corrections saying that they had a need, that they have a need, and this is a way to address that need. If they don't have the need, then we don't have to talk about this. In 2016, the Department of Corrections came forward with a $141 million bonding request for 500 prison beds, with the expectation that within a few years they were going to have to ask for another 500 beds. So this is not, and I fully support everything that people have been saying. My heart burns for these people, okay? But we have a need in the state of Minnesota, and all these conversations would go even more egregious if we went and overspent for these beds that are being planned to be built in the future by the Department of Corrections. So I'm trying to provide an asset to address that need, nothing else. And I fear that if we bring this into the into the Committee of Public Safety, we're going to fall back into a lot of these conversations. I don't know if you've been part of those committees before. We've had the conversations. I believe it's time to move on and have the conversation before us.
Representative Olson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. To that point, I appreciate it, but if I understood correctly, that would have been for leasing the building. We're talking about substantially a pretty big number here, and to the point of the state government finance and to what this means for, you know, our entire, I think it does need a different level of vetting than when we were talking about leasing. And to that point, too, we didn't hear from the Department of Corrections today about if this is needed and supported by them. And again, why I think it's important that we go have this conversation in public safety. I don't feel satisfied having not had this conversation with the Department of Correction that you're citing as needing this. I did not hear them or see them here today.
Madam Chair.
Representative Miller.
Very briefly. Promise. This bill before us is a progression from those conversations. There was a lease to own or own was what the bill was. and it came to the conversation of, well, we need to assess what we have out there. So that study was done last year. We brought forward the assessment. I don't even necessarily agree with everything in that assessment. We take them at their word, and we're saying this is the next step. So this is a progression from those conversations.
Representative Ward, to this motion. Is it to this motion? If not, I'll call on you next. Okay. So Representative Olson has moved that the bill be referred to the Committee on Public Safety. She has requested a roll call. Members, if you look in the bill on line 1.8, this is dealing with the Commissioner Administration. The Commissioner Administration is the one that receives the funding for that and manages it. It is not the Department of Corrections or the Department of Public Safety. So with that, the clerk will take the roll.
Anderson.
No.
Nash.
No.
Detmer.
No.
Fenton.
No.
Flanagan.
Yes.
Green.
No.
Knies-Padin.
Yes.
Lilly.
Yes.
O'Driscoll.
No.
Olson.
Yes.
Pugh.
No.
Guam.
9.
Hoogland. Vogel.
No.
Ward.
Yes.
On a vote of 5-9, the Representative Olson motion does not prevail. Representative Ward.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have discussed this endlessly in public safety, and it has not gone anywhere for a reason. Commissioner Roy is here, and I wondered if he would come down and be willing to talk to us just for a minute. And while he might do that,
I apologize, Representative Ward. I asked for if there was anybody else that wished to testify. I only received one person,
Well,
and I'm going to be making a motion here shortly.
Thank you. One of the conclusions that we have come to is that the money would be better spent in current facilities, and Max Hall pointed that out. The money would be better spent in youth intervention and early childhood family education programs and some of the other opportunities that people have discussed for us. Let's spend the money in front of the problem so that we don't put human beings behind bars needlessly.
Okay. And I'm going to renew my motion to have House File 3106 be referred to the Committee on Capital Investment without recommendation.
I would like to request a roll call on that.
Representative Olson requests a roll call. The clerk will take the roll.
Anderson.
Yes.
Nash.
Yes.
Detmer.
Yes.
Fenton.
Yes.
Flanagan.
No.
Green.
Yes.
Knies-Padin.
No.
Lilly.
No.
O'Driscoll.
Yes.
Olson.
No.
Pugh.
Yes.
Guam.
C.
Hoogland. Vogel.
Yes.
Ward.
No.
On a vote of 9-5, the motion does prevail. The House File 3106 will be referred to Committee on Capital Investment. Thank you, Representative Miller. And it's already on there. With that, we are adjourned.